The morning sun glinted off the polished metal surfaces of Earth Space Defense Academy. The flags of Earth's United Nations fluttered in the spring breeze. Today was no ordinary day. Today, the Academy would host its first official visit from a high-ranking galactic hegemony official. Fleet Commander Zaxvort sat rigid in his command chair aboard the diplomatic shuttle. His four arms were crossed over his armored chest. His exoskeleton, a deep blue-green, reflected the dim lights of the cabin. The trip to Earth was, in his view, a waste of time. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel a century ago. They were infants in the cosmic order. "We begin descent in 5 minutes, Commander," his pilot reported. Zaxvor clicked his mandibles in acknowledgement. His orders from the Hegemony Council were clear. Evaluate the human military training facility and assess their potential as allies or threats. The Council had become concerned with how quickly humans were gaining influence among the galactic powers. "Prepare the security team," Zaxvor ordered. "Remember, these humans are physically fragile but unpredictable." On the landing pad below, Jack Bennett straightened his dress uniform for the third time. As superintendent of the Academy, the responsibility for this visit fell squarely on his shoulders. At 55, with gray hair and eyes that had seen combat across 3 star systems, Jack understood the importance of first impressions. See, Susan Baker, a tall woman with short blonde hair, nodded toward the honor guard of 20 cadets, standing at perfect attention despite the growing heat. "Everything's in place, sir. The tour schedule is confirmed, security protocols are active, and the demonstration teams are ready." Jack nodded. "Good. Remember, these hegemony types respect strength above all. We show respect, but not submission." The diplomatic shuttle appeared as a black dot in the sky, growing larger by the second. Its design was sleek, but clearly built for a species with different proportions than humans. The craft touched down with barely a sound, a display of technical superiority that wasn't lost on Jack. A ramp extended from the shuttle's side. The first to emerge were 4 security officers, each standing nearly 7 feet tall with reinforced environmental suits. Their four-armed stance made them appear even larger as they scanned the area with compound eyes. Then came Zaxvor himself. The fleet commander stood head and shoulders above his security detail. His movements were precise and economical, the mark of someone used to a much stronger gravity field. The environmental suit he wore was decorated with symbols of rank and achievement, telling a story of victories and conquests that Jack could only partially decipher. Jack stepped forward, hand extended in the human gesture of greeting. "Welcome to Earth Space Defense Academy, Commander Zaxvor. I'm Superintendent Jack Bennett. We're honored to share our training methods with an ally of your distinction." Zaxvor looked at the extended hand, but did not attempt to take it. Instead, he made a series of clicking sounds that his translator converted to English. The hegemony is curious how a species with such biological limitations produces space combatants worthy of notice. "I shall observe with an open mind, Superintendent Bennett." Jack lowered his hand smoothly, as if that had been his intention all along. "We look forward to demonstrating our programs. If you'll follow me, we've prepared a briefing on our facility." As they walked toward the main building, Jack noticed how Zaxvor's security team kept their hands near their weapons. The cadets maintained their discipline, eyes forward, but Jack could sense their tension. Zaxvor paused to study a group of cadets training in an outdoor exercise field. The humans were small compared to his people, with soft skin instead of protective exoskeletons, and only 2 arms instead of 4. How had such creatures managed to establish themselves as a rising power in galactic politics? "Your cadets begin training at what age?" Zaxvor asked. "Most enter the academy at 18 or 19 years old," Jack replied. "So young," Zaxvor commented. "In the hegemony, warriors train for at least 40 cycles before combat duty." Jack smiled slightly. "Humans live shorter lives, Commander. We adapt quickly out of necessity." Zaxvor's antenna twitched with interest. Indeed, perhaps that explains some of your species' reputation for unconventional solutions. As they entered the main hall of the Academy, a holographic display showed the history of human space exploration and defense. Zaxvor studied it carefully, noting how quickly humans had advanced from primitive rockets to interstellar vessels. "This tour will be most educational," Zaxvor said, his translator unable to fully capture the complex emotions behind his words. Most educational indeed. The morning of the second day began with Zaxvor and his security team following Jack through the east wing of the Academy. The hallways were wide and lined with pictures of space battles and famous human commanders. Cadets moved quickly between classes, stepping aside with respectful nods as the alien delegation passed. "Today we'll observe our tactical training classes," Jack explained. "Major Olivia Wright leads this department. She's one of our most experienced instructors." They entered a large classroom where 30 cadets sat at interactive desks. At the front stood Major Wright, a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and sharp eyes. Her left arm was not made of flesh but of advanced metal and plastic, a neural-integrated prosthetic that moved as naturally as her right arm. Zaxvor's antenna twitched at the sight. In hegemony culture, injured warriors were reassigned to non-combat roles. A missing limb meant the end of a combat career. Major Wright nodded to the visitors but continued her lesson without interruption. "In this simulation, your ship is outnumbered 5-1. The enemy has better weapons and faster engines. Your life support is damaged. What do you do?" A young cadet raised his hand. "Retreat and call for backup." "Dead," Major Wright said flatly. "The enemy ships are faster. They'll catch you before help arrives." Another cadet spoke up. "Hide in the nebula to repair systems." "Better," Wright nodded. "But still probably dead. The nebula damages your systems too." A quiet cadet in the back corner raised her hand. "Vent plasma from the damaged life support system to look more critically damaged than we are. When the enemy closes to finish us off, divert all power to weapons and target their lead ship's command center." Major Wright smiled. "Now you're thinking like a human. Sometimes the best way to deal with impossible odds is to create a scenario your enemy doesn't expect." Zaxvor stepped closer, his interest clearly growing. "Why do you emphasize scenarios where victory is statistically improbable?" he asked during a break in the lesson. Major Wright turned to him with a slight smile. "Because humans rarely face even odds in space, Commander. We've learned to think beyond conventional solutions." She tapped her metal arm. "I lost this limb in the Battle of Proxima Centauri. My ship was destroyed. By all logical calculations, my entire crew should have died. But we didn't accept that outcome. We found another way." Her eyes held a fierce pride. "That's what we teach here. There's always another option if you're creative enough and stubborn enough to find it." After the tactical class, Jack led the delegation to the technology labs. The large room hummed with energy as cadets worked at stations filled with partially disassembled alien devices. Professor Alan Garcia greeted them at the door. He was a short man with kind eyes behind smart glasses that displayed data only he could see. "Welcome to Applied Quantum Physics," he said. "Today we're studying interface technology." Zaxvor moved between the workstations, examining the devices. His compound eyes widened as he recognized components from various species, including some from hegemony vessels. "You've altered Praxian designs," Zaxvor noted, pointing to a neural interface that a cadet was modifying. "They do not share such innovations willingly." "We asked nicely," Professor Garcia said with a shrug. "And when that failed, we reverse-engineered what we needed." The professor picked up one of the modified interfaces. "Human reaction time is slower than most spacefaring species. That's a fact of our biology. But we found ways to compensate by creating predictive interfaces. These systems don't just respond to commands. They anticipate them based on pilot intention patterns." Zaxvor's translator struggled to convey his tone as he asked, "How did humans advance so quickly in neural technology? The Praxians have spent centuries perfecting their designs." Professor Garcia's smile was both humble and proud. Necessity, Commander. When your survival depends on solving a problem, you find solutions faster than those who study out of mere curiosity. As they left the classroom, Zaxfor made extensive notes in his datapad. Jack noticed the alien commander's security team exchanging glances with each other. Is something wrong, Commander? Jack asked. Zaxvor's mandibles clicked softly before his translator spoke. Not wrong, Superintendent. Unexpected. Your teaching methods are not what I anticipated. Jack nodded. We have much more to show you, Commander. This is just the beginning. This is our gravity gymnasium, Jack announced as the large doors slid open. The room before them was massive, divided into several round chambers with transparent walls. Inside each chamber, cadets were training in different gravity conditions. Their movements varied dramatically from chamber to chamber. Zaxfor stepped forward, his compound eyes focusing on the readings displayed above each training area. 0.5 G, 1 G, 2 G, 3 G, 3.5 G. These gravity settings, Zaxfor said, his translator unable to hide his surprise. The higher levels should crush human bones. Training Officer Kate Miller approached them. She was shorter than most of the cadets, but moved with the confident grace of someone completely in control of her body. Her arms showed defined muscles, and her weathered face suggested years of hard training. That would be true if we dropped someone directly into 3.5 G, Kate explained. But human bodies can adapt to almost anything if you give them time and proper conditioning. They watched as cadets in the 2G chamber performed combat moves against training robots. Their movements were slower than normal but precise. Sweat poured down their faces as they fought against the doubled weight of their own bodies. We start cadets at Earth standard gravity and gradually increase the settings, Kate continued. Over 3 years, most can function effectively up to 3G. Our best reach 3.5 G. Why? Zaxfor asked simply. Because we might have to fight in high-gravity environments, Kate replied, or against species evolved in high-gravity worlds. She glanced meaningfully at Zaxvor's powerful frame. In the central chamber, the gravity shifted suddenly from 1G to 2G. The cadets training inside stumbled but quickly adjusted their stances. Then the gravity shifted again to 0.5 G, sending several of them floating upward before they grabbed handholds on the walls. Random gravity fluctuations, Jack explained. Space combat doesn't happen in stable environments. Ship gravity systems can fail or be damaged. Zaxfor watched as one cadet, a young man with determined eyes, struggled more than the others. When the gravity shifted to 3G, he collapsed to one knee, his face contorted with effort. That cadet is failing, Zaxfor observed. He should be removed from the exercise. Kate shook her head. Watch. The struggling cadet, Ryan Cooper according to his uniform, forced himself back to his feet. His teammates called encouragement to him, their voices audible through the chamber speakers. Come on, Ryan. Push through it. You've got this. Coop. 10 more seconds. Then it'll shift again. Ryan's legs shook, but he stood and completed his assigned movement pattern, just as the gravity shifted again. Why continue when physical failure has occurred? Zaxfor asked. Kate's expression hardened. Because in space, Commander, giving up means death, not just for you, but for your crew. We don't train our people to function within their limitations. We train them to exceed them. Later, they visited the medical wing. Here, cadets rested in advanced recovery beds. Screens displayed their vital signs and healing progress. Dr. Greg Martinez greeted them. He was a tall man with kind eyes and steady hands. Welcome to medical. This is where we put our cadets back together after we break them. Zaxfor observed a female cadet whose leg was under a regeneration field. How long for complete healing? He asked. 3 days for functional recovery, Dr. Martinez said. A week for full-strength restoration. Without our enhanced techniques, it would take months. Dr. Martinez showed them laboratory displays of human cellular structures. We've developed specialized treatments, hormone therapy, neural stimulation, and nanite-assisted recovery. They accelerate natural human healing by factors of 10 to 15. These methods, Zaxfor said, making notes in his datapad, they were not developed naturally. Necessity drives innovation, Dr. Martins replied. Humans can't naturally heal fast enough for the dangers of space, so we found ways to change that. Zaxfor studied the medical charts carefully. Your entire training philosophy centers on overcoming biological inadequacy, he observed. We prefer to call it human ingenuity. Dr. Martins replied with a smile. We work with what we've got. As they left the medical wing, Zaxfor spoke quietly to Jack. These cadets, they'd break their bodies willingly, then rebuild them stronger. Jack nodded. That's the human way, Commander. We adapt to overcome. Zaxfor's security team followed behind, their posture notably more alert than when they had arrived. Jack noticed they were watching the training humans with new eyes, not with dismissal, but with growing caution. On the morning of the third day, Jack led Zaxfor and his team to a section of the academy marked with red warning lights. Heavy security doors slid open to reveal a large circular room filled with rows of white pods, each about 7 feet long. This is our neural immersion combat simulator, Jack said with evident pride. The most advanced training system we've developed. Captain Laura Stevens greeted them. She was a tall woman with short red hair and a thin scar running along her jawline. Her uniform bore the insignia of both a pilot and a tactical specialist. The NICES is the final phase of combat training for our cadets, Laura explained. Inside each pod is a sensory-responsive gel that creates a full-body tactical experience. Zaxfor approached one of the empty pods. The inside was lined with a clear, slightly moving gel. Thin neural connectors floated on the surface. The cadets are placed in the gel, Laura continued. The neural connectors link to their nervous systems, creating a complete immersive environment. They can see, hear, feel, and even smell the simulation. And they train in groups this way. Zaxfor asked, noting how the pods were arranged in clusters of 6. Yes, each pod is separate, but their minds are connected in the simulation. They experience combat scenarios as a team, just as they would in real space combat. Laura tapped a control panel, and a screen showed what appeared to be the inside of a spacecraft. Cadets in space armor were moving through the corridors, weapons ready. What's most impressive, Jack added, is that the simulations include actual pain responses. Zaxfor's antenna twitched. You deliberately inflict discomfort on your trainees, he asked. Pain is an excellent teacher, Commander, Laura responded without apology. A cadet who experiences the consequences of a mistake in simulation is less likely to repeat it in reality. The pain is calibrated, Jack quickly added, just below traumatic levels, enough to create real consequences for errors, but not enough to cause psychological damage. Laura nodded to a group of senior cadets entering the room, led by a serious young man with close-cropped hair. This is Frank Nelson and his squad, Laura said. They're in their final year of training. Commander, would you like to observe their simulation through a neural link? You won't feel what they feel, but you'll see what they experience. Zaxfor hesitated only briefly. Yes, I would find that informative. Laura led him to a special observer station with a single neural connector. This will create a one-way link to the simulation. You'll be invisible to the cadets. As the cadets entered their pods and the covers sealed, Zaxfor allowed the neural connector to attach to the base of his neck. His compound eyes closed as the link activated. Suddenly, he was standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a spacecraft. With a shock, he recognized it as a hegemony warship. His own warship, the inevitable dominance. The human cadets were in boarding positions, preparing to take the ship. Frank's voice came through clearly. Remember, hegemony vessels have reinforced command centers. Standard breaching won't work. We'll use tactical approach Delta. Zaxvor watched with growing astonishment as the cadets split into 3 teams. One created a diversion in the lower decks. Another disabled key systems in precisely the right sequence to prevent lockdown protocols. The third, led by Frank, used maintenance shafts that Zaxvor knew were too small for his own species, but perfect for human infiltrators. The cadets encountered simulated hegemony warriors, accurate representations of Zaxvor's own crew. Despite being physically outmatched, the humans used coordinated tactics that exploited weaknesses Zaxvor hadn't considered in his own vessel's design. When the simulation ended with the theoretical destruction of his flagship, Zaxvor disconnected from the feed. He sat in silence for several moments. Your cadets train against specific hegemony configurations, he finally stated, somewhere between accusation and admiration. Captain Stevens met his compound eyes steadily. We train against all potential scenarios, Commander. Alliance doesn't preclude preparation. As they left the simulation room, one of Zaxvor's security officers leaned closer to him and spoke quietly in their native language, a series of clicks and chirps that the humans' translators couldn't process. They know our weaknesses too well, the security officer said. This is concerning. Zaxvor's reply was equally quiet. What concerns me more is what we don't know about theirs. Today, we'll visit our Academy Museum, Jack said as they walked through a wide corridor lined with large windows. Outside, cadets ran in formation across the training grounds, their breaths visible in the cool morning air. Zaxvor had been unusually quiet since the previous day's simulation. His security team stayed closer to him now, their posture more alert than when they first arrived. The museum entrance was marked by a simple sign: Human History, the Long Road to the Stars. Inside, the lights were dim, highlighting displays that stretched from floor to ceiling. Museum curator William Powell greeted them at the door. He was an older man with white hair and glasses, wearing a formal dark blue suit instead of a military uniform. "Welcome to our historical archives," William said with a small bow. "Here we preserve the journey that brought humanity from our first steps to the stars." The first displays showed early human conflicts, primitive humans with spears and arrows, ancient armies with swords and shields, then more modern images of tanks and planes. "Your species has always fought each other," Zaxvor observed. William nodded. "Human history is largely a history of conflict. These displays cover roughly 10,000 years of recorded human warfare." They moved to a section dedicated to what humans called world wars. The images here were darker, cities reduced to rubble, devices that created massive explosions, and countless dead. "These global conflicts nearly destroyed your civilization," Zaxvor said, studying the displays carefully. "Yes," William agreed. "The Second World War alone killed over 70 million humans." Zaxvor's antenna twitched with surprise. Such losses would cripple most species. "It nearly did," William said. "But notice what happened after each major conflict." He directed them to parallel displays showing technological advances that emerged during and after each war, medical breakthroughs following battlefield medicine, energy technologies developed for weapons later adapted for civilian use, and communication systems created for military coordination that later connected the world. "Your species turns destruction into creation," Zaxvor observed. "Necessity is the mother of invention," William replied. "And few things create necessity like existential threats." They continued through the museum, passing displays showing humanity's first ventures into space, simple rockets, orbital stations, then lunar landings. "This section might interest you particularly," William said, stopping before a display labeled Pre-Contact Alien Preparation. The display contained thousands of books, films, and games created before humans had met any alien species. Many showed detailed imaginary alien civilizations, first contact scenarios, and interstellar conflicts. "These are all fictional," William explained, "created before we knew aliens existed." Zaxor picked up one book titled First Contact Protocols, with a publication date 50 years before Earth's actual first contact with alien life. "Your people were preparing for us before you knew we existed," Zaxor said, his translator conveying his confusion. William smiled. "Humans have always looked to the stars with equal parts hope and caution, Commander. It's in our nature to imagine what might be waiting for us and how to survive it." They'd moved to the final section of the museum, which documented humanity's rapid expansion after achieving faster-than-light travel. Maps showed human colonies spreading quickly across nearby star systems, forming alliances with some alien species and careful boundaries with others. "In just 1 century," Williams said, "we went from our first FTL flight to having colonies in 27 star systems. Most species take 3 or 4 centuries to expand that far." "Because you were ready," Zaxor said, understanding dawning in his voice. "Your fictional preparations became real plans." William nodded. "We had been mentally preparing for space expansion for generations. When the opportunity came, we already had the mindset needed to seize it." As they left the museum, Zaxor paused at a final display. A simple glass case containing books written by human military strategists throughout history. "May I?" he asked, pointing to one book. William carefully opened the case and handed him the book titled The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Zaxor read a passage. "Know your enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be defeated." He returned the book carefully. "This warrior spoke wisdom. Your species has followed it well. You studied us long before we studied you." Jack exchanged a glance with William. The alien commander was beginning to understand what made humans different and dangerous. The next morning brought heavy rain. Water streamed down the windows of the academy as Jack led Zaxor and his team through a quieter section of the complex. The hallways here were painted in soft blues and greens, a stark contrast to the military efficiency of the rest of the facility. "This is our psychological training center," Jack explained, "perhaps the most important part of cadet preparation." Zaxor's antenna moved slightly, indicating curiosity. "Physical combat and tactical skills seem more essential for warriors." Jack shook his head. "The mind controls the body, Commander. A cadet with perfect physical abilities, but weak mental resilience will break under pressure." They entered a room where a young cadet sat alone in a clear chamber. The small room contained nothing but a chair. A timer on the wall showed the cadet had been there for 23 hours. "Isolation training," Jack said quietly. "Space can be lonely. Missions might require weeks or months of minimal human contact." Zaxor studied the cadet, who sat with eyes closed, breathing steadily despite the obvious discomfort. In another room, cadets wore virtual reality headsets, while monitors displayed their heart rates, stress hormones, and brain activity. The readings spiked into dangerous levels, yet the cadets continued their exercises. Chief Psychologist Nicole Harris greeted them there. She was a calm woman with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, her eyes showing both kindness and analytical sharpness. "What are they experiencing?" Zaxor asked, pointing to the cadets. "Fear induction," Nicole explained. "We create personalized scenarios based on each cadet's deepest fears. Some experience simulated suffocation. Others face the void of space without protection. Some watch their teammates die while being unable to help." Zaxor's security team shifted uncomfortably. "You torture your warriors?" one asked. Nicole shook her head firmly. "No. We prepare them. Space is fundamentally hostile to human life, Commander. Beyond the physical challenges, there's the psychological impact of knowing you're surrounded by vacuum, radiation, and distances that the human mind wasn't evolved to comprehend." She gestured to the monitors. "We push them to their breaking points in controlled settings, so they learn where those points are and how to push past them." In the next room, a group of 10 cadets sat in a circle, talking openly with each other. Some had tears in their eyes. Others listened with intense focus. "Group therapy," Nicole said. Cadets discuss their fears, failures, and doubts openly. In my culture, Zaxfor noted, admitting fear would disqualify a warrior from service. With respect, Commander, Nickel responded, denying fear doesn't eliminate it. Unacknowledged fear becomes hesitation, error, or psychological breakdown at critical moments. We teach our cadets to recognize their fears, process them, and act despite them. She led them to a specialized chamber marked Death Simulation. Inside, a single pod similar to those in the combat simulator stood ready. Every cadet undergoes this experience before graduation, Nickel explained. The simulation creates a complete sensory experience of their own death in combat. Zaxfor's translator seemed to struggle with his response. You train them to die, he finally stated. We train them to face death, Nicole corrected, so they can focus on living and winning when it matters. She showed them data from before and after the death simulations, brain scans, performance metrics, and psychological profiles. After facing their mortality in controlled settings, cadets show a 43% increase in combat effectiveness, she said. Their decision-making becomes clearer because the fear of death no longer overwhelms their thinking. One of Zaxfor's security officers spoke up. In the hegemony, we value courage above all other traits in warriors. Nicole nodded. Humans value courage too, but we define it differently. True courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite fear. Our training doesn't eliminate fear. It teaches mastery over it. As they left the psychological training center, Zaxfor walked in silence, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. Jack waited patiently, allowing the alien commander time to process what he had seen. Your methods are unlike any I have encountered in my travels across 12 galactic sectors, Zaxfor finally said. You do not train warriors as other species do. No, Jack agreed simply. We don't. On the final day of the tour, the academy grounds were filled with activity. Flags fluttered in the breeze, and the parade ground had been prepared for a special event. Today was graduation day for the senior cadets. Jack invited Zaxfor to observe from a raised platform where academy leaders and honored guests sat. Below them, rows of cadets stood at perfect attention in dress uniforms, their faces solemn with the weight of the moment. These cadets have completed 3 years of training, Jack explained. Today, they faced their final challenge before becoming officers. The challenge began with a signal from Jack. The graduating cadets moved to an obstacle course, unlike any Zaxfor had seen before. It combined physical barriers, tactical puzzles, and psychological stresses all at once. The course changed unpredictably as the cadets moved through it, forcing them to adapt constantly. This final test combines everything they've learned, Jack said. Physical endurance, tactical thinking, teamwork, and mental resilience. Zaxfor watched as the cadets worked through the course. Despite the brutal difficulty, they moved with determination and coordination. When obstacles seemed impossible, they found creative solutions. When paths were blocked, they made new ones. Halfway through the course, a female cadet twisted her ankle badly on a climbing wall. She fell, clearly in pain. Zaxfor expected her to be removed from the test, but instead, her teammates gathered around her. They should continue without her, one of Zaxfor's security officers commented. She will slow them down. But the humans did something unexpected. 2 cadets helped support the injured woman while others modified their formation to protect her as they continued. They sacrificed their individual completion times to ensure everyone finished together. They risk failure to help the weakest, Zaxfor asked. They understand that real strength comes from unity, Jack replied. In space, leaving someone behind is rarely the right answer. When all cadets had completed the course, they reassembled on the parade ground. Despite exhaustion, injuries, and sweat-soaked uniforms, they stood tall as Jack presented them with their officer insignia. Later, as Zaxfor prepared to depart, he and Jack stood alone in the superintendent's office. The view from the window showed the new officers celebrating with their families. "Your training methods are formidable," HFY said, "but they reveal something I cannot reconcile. Humans are physically weaker than most spacefaring species. Your lives are shorter, your reaction times slower. By all objective measures, you should be minor participants in galactic affairs. Yet in just a century, you've secured alliances, territories, and technologies that other species spent millennia acquiring. How?" Jack considered the question carefully. "Commander, most species evolved to fill a specific ecological niche and specialized accordingly. Humans never had that luxury. We're not the strongest, fastest, or most naturally gifted species on our own planet, let alone the galaxy. But what we lack in specialized advantages, we make up for in adaptability and determination." He gestured toward the celebrating graduates. "Every human knows they're outmatched by the universe. We've always been. Our entire civilization is built on overcoming superior forces, whether that's nature, physics, biology, or other species. We don't train our people to be the best at what they naturally are. We train them to become whatever they need to be to survive." HFY was silent for a long moment, his compound eyes fixed on the human celebrations below. "I came here expecting to evaluate a primitive training facility," he finally said. "Instead, I begin to understand why some in the hegemony fear human expansion." Jack smiled slightly. "We don't want to be feared, Commander. We want to be respected, and to earn our place among the stars through cooperation when possible." "And when cooperation is not possible?" HFY asked. Jack's expression grew serious. "Then we do whatever is necessary to protect our people. That's the one constant in human history." As HFY boarded his shuttle to return to his ship, he began composing his report to the Hegemony Council. The words came slowly as he struggled to convey what he had witnessed. "Do not mistake human biological limitations for weakness. Their entire species has evolved not to win through natural advantage, but to refuse defeat through sheer persistence and ingenuity. In evaluating humans as allies or potential adversaries, conventional metrics are insufficient. They are not what they seem, and that makes them either the galaxy's greatest asset or its most unpredictable threat." The commander's shuttle rose through Earth's atmosphere, leaving the Academy behind.